This week, Charlie, you picked PeterBoulware to join us in studio.
I think, the way Bowden did it, he made everybody, even if you are on the scout team, you felt special.
They won 2 games. They lost 2 games, here recently, the last 4. And so now we're back at square one.
It's because anytime you lose a quarterback of the caliber that Alabama loses, it's tough to rally your team.
Welcome to another edition of Chalk Talk with Charlie Ward. In just a few minutes, we'll be joined by today's guest, PeterBoulware. But we start, as we do each week, with some opening thoughts from our team captain, Charlie Ward. Charlie, we've seen 2 straight losses from the FSU football team, something that fans, they're not really happy with. So what are your thoughts on that?
Let me take a moment to inspire all the fans and alumni who's bummed about their team losing over the weekend. When it comes to sports, in my opinion, it's about winning and losing. The goal of winning gives kids a purpose to keep fighting through adversity towards their goals. Sports teaches us that there are bigger issues than booing your team, name calling, or demanding a coach to be fired when things aren't going well. Playing a sport teaches us to persevere. Sports teaches our kids to hang in there, to not give up when things get tough. We can learn a lot from sports besides just winning and losing. Persevere. Don't give up when things are tough. I would like to share this story about a kid that is a walk-on for the Minnesota Golden Gophers football team. His name is Casey O'Brien. He was able to live out a dream that he never thought would occur this past Saturday. He was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, a rare bone cancer, when he was a freshman in high school. With Saturday's outcome well in hand, Minnesota coach P.J. Fleck called O'Brien's number 14 to hold for the point after for the Golden Gophers' 4th extra point of the game. This is why I coach, and a reason for us to put wins and losses in perspective. Don't give up when your team is struggling, and don't give up when you're going through tough life decisions, because you can inspire someone else to keep moving towards their goals just like Casey. Hashtag 3Ps. Hashtag Charlie's Chalk Talk.
We've got a big-time show and a big-time guest. This week, Charlie, you picked PeterBoulware to join us in studio.
Yes, we were able to get Peter. He does a lot for the community, has great family time, and he runs a school. And so we definitely appreciate PeterBoulware, former teammate of mine at Florida State, and he's a first-round draft pick of the Baltimore Ravens. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, Charlie. Thanks for having me.
Well, as you know, we're talking about perseverance, and one of the things I want to talk about, you've heard about my story of persevering and throwing interceptions, which you didn't see. You might have witnessed it from the stands, but I would just like to hear your story of perseverance and the things that you may have needed to do to overcome those.
Yeah,
to get back.
Probably for me, again, it was, when I played in the NFL my last couple of years, trying to overcome injuries. And you really never know how good you have it until you get an injury and the thing that you love the most gets taken away from you. And I remember it was my last couple of years in the league, and I was playing pretty good, and my knee ended up getting hurt, and I never thought that I wouldn't be playing the next year. I just thought I'd get better, but I didn't. And I found myself not playing the game that I liked, and it was pretty tough. And it just made me really reflect back on just the good times I had in the NFL, and just, when you have good things, a lot of times you take it for granted, and you take, being healthy or just being able to do the things that you love for granted. And it just sitting on the sideline, looking at the Ravens play and me not being out there made me realize, you know what, as I approach life in the future, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to accept every moment that I have. I'm going to live every moment that I have with a grateful heart and a grateful attitude, and I never want to miss an opportunity complaining about what I don't have. And so, again, it was tough having an injury, but as I look back on it now, just the life lessons that I learned from it, and just hopefully looking back on it and hopefully making me a better player. So it was tough, but as I live my life and as I talk to my kids and talk to my students, it's just it's a way to be grateful for what you have, and try not to complain about things that that come your way. As you mentioned earlier in the show, there are other people out there that are going through tough things, like this kid who had cancer. There's a lot of things that we can look at in our lives and say, you know what, life is not as bad as we think we've got it, and we just need to have good attitudes and push through things.
Well, I definitely agree with that perspective, because a lot of times we do take life for granted, take things for granted that we may have, and perseverance is something that I think we all need to have, or if you're going to meet your goal. Like I talk to a lot of people when I go around and speak, is if you give up, you're definitely not going to meet your goal. That's a guarantee. And so to be able to persevere through the tough times and learn from those experiences definitely makes you who you are today. And so when we talk about perseverance and going through the challenges of life, Woody, we got our FSU Seminoles, who we love and dearly beloved in a lot of different ways, are struggling right now. They won 2 games. They lost 2 games, here recently, the last 4. And so now we're back at square one when it comes to questioning the coach, questioning the players, questioning everything they're doing, or scrutinizing everything they're doing. And so it's been a challenge.
Yeah.
But from your perspective, what do you think you've seen over the past 4 weeks, in a sense, but definitely the last 2?
I think for me it comes down to when you see people calling for the coach. There's only a certain limit where a coach can go. The coach doesn't fumble the ball. The coach doesn't throw the interception. He doesn't miss the tackles. The players are making those mistakes. Once we can correct those mistakes and persevere through the hard times, I think you're going to come out on the good side, and you'll start seeing us get back to our winning ways fairly quickly, hopefully.
With that, I'm an offensive guy, and so of course I see things from an offensive perspective, and there are a lot of little things that could be done better, but when it's all said and done, I really think is playmaking. I'm a big believer that coaches put guys in situations and players have to make plays. And I've always said that there hasn't been a play that came in as a player that we didn't practice, and it came down to the execution. Whether it was throwing the ball away, whether it was making the hard play, getting the necessary yardage, whatever it may be, but the guys had to get out there and execute those plays. And so, Peter, with that being said, I know you're a defensive guy. What are some of the things that you see that we can do better from a defensive standpoint, and what we may be missing?
Yeah, and my passion when I played was getting after the quarterback. And I think once you stop them on first and second down, if you can put pressure on the quarterback, if you can make a quarterback rush his reads, I mean, it'd be great to get the sack, fumble, and those are awesome plays. But even if you can move the quarterback off the spot or get him looking at, the pressure that you're producing, it really helps the defense out. It helps the secondary out. And there's 2 ways to create pressure. You can bring 3 or 4 and just because you have great pass rushers, you get to the quarterback, or you can design it and you can bring a 5th rusher or a 6th rusher. And I think as we move forward, we need to look at maybe if we can't get there with 3 or 4, maybe start bringing pressure and maybe start bringing some zone pressure and designing pressure in such a way that maybe we can bring it away from the protection. And that's kind of how we did it in Baltimore. Especially with the 3-4 defense. That's what it allows you to do to design pressures and coverages that can bring you artificial pressure. It puts a little bit more, makes it a little tougher for the secondary because they've got to have a little bit more man looks. But to me, I mean, pressure is so important. So if you've got to bring an extra 5th or a 6th guy, I think that's what we need to do just to get the quarterback off balance and get him looking at different looks, I think.
Well, definitely keeping people off balance definitely helps. I know from a quarterback perspective, when you see a lot of people in your face or people rushing, if you don't really know where to go to football, it's going to be tough because you start looking at that rush. But overall, I know our Seminoles will definitely get an opportunity to get back on the right track. They have another opportunity here for homecoming against Syracuse, and hopefully they can get back on track.
Well, it's always a treat to get Charlie and Peter together talking football. It's halftime in our show right now, but when we come back, we'll go online, pick out some questions that you've submitted to Charlie. Chalk Talk with Charlie Ward is back right after this message from our friends at Tallahassee Dodge Chrysler Jeep. Welcome back to Chalk Talk with Charlie Ward. Normally during this time of the show, we take your questions from our online audience, and we answer them with Charlie. It's Chalk Talk with Charlie Ward's family time, but today we're going to take a little detour from that. We're going to be talking with some of Charlie's 1993 championship football family, and we're going to talk about that year with FSU football. Guys, it had to be just an amazing year for you guys. I was there in Miami, sitting behind a pole, obstructed view ticket, watching a national championship game, and for a fan, it's just overwhelming, the excitement. For you guys, all the hard work paid off.
Well, most definitely. It was a great year for us, and one of the things I know with Peter, he was on the scout team during that time, and his presence, he had another guy on the other side that was given the same amount of pressure that prepared us for a game like Miami. And so those challenges in practice were definitely beneficial for us because our scout team was this guy. And so, Peter, just so they can understand and know, what did I actually teach you as a player?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny, like, the year before that, I was in high school, and I was kind of a fan of you guys, you know, and so I saw you guys in '92 and how you guys finished that year up, and so I got the opportunity to come in as a freshman and be on that scout team, and I remember a lot of my classmates that year, they didn't redshirt, they played, and I was trying to figure out, should I redshirt, should I not? And one of the older guys said, look, you need a redshirt. There's no freshman in the country that gets an opportunity to go against the number one offense every day in practice, and practice against a Heisman Trophy quarterback. You need to do that. You need to cut your teeth against that. If you can perform against that, you can do against anything. And so I jumped on that scout team, and I looked at it as a privilege to be able to play against the best and to play against, you know, one of college's best quarterbacks. And I remember, you know, I used to try to come off the corner, and this guy right here, I mean, in a blink of the eye, you would look up and he'd be somewhere else, you know. And it was just amazing to get the opportunity to play with these guys, and hopefully, you know, the guys on the scout team prepared you guys, but we looked at it as, man, what a privilege to be able to play against these guys, and we get a chance to get better against the best. And so I think, you know, the way Bowden did it, he made everybody, even if you were on the scout team, you felt special. And even the older guys, the seniors, you know, they made us feel special, and they wanted us, you know, not to take it easy, but to work them as hard as we possibly could work them. And so we won that national championship that year, and it was just a good synergy, just great team leadership, and it was fun being a part of something special. And when you get guys on the same page they're working hard and appreciating everybody, you can do special things.
So it's great culture.
Absolutely.
In '93, championship culture, and I know one day we're going to get back to that.
Yep.
But like you said, Charlie, a little perseverance goes a long way, and we hope to get there soon. But we also have something new this week. We had an online poll, and the question that we asked, who will be the first team to lose a game this year? Alabama, Clemson, or Ohio State? Charlie?
Well, now the poll, I think Ohio State was 36%, and the other two teams were 34%. Who would lose first? Ohio State has Wisconsin coming up. Ohio State really looks good. Justin Fields is playing really, really well, and he has some really good weapons from an offense standpoint. And defensively, they've stepped up their game this year, and they're playing much better, and they're really playing at a high level. And so if they can get past Wisconsin, I think they still have Penn State. They still got some more teams that they got to get through.
Yeah.
Michigan, to be able to eliminate that one loss. But they have a good chance. But the key now is Alabama.
Absolutely.
They just lost Tua for a couple of weeks and with his high ankle sprain. And so playing with that injury, he'll be probably healthy. The LSU game at some point, healthy enough to play. But their defense, they have a lot of young guys, and they struggle.
Yep.
Even though they won the game the other night against Tennessee, but they really, really struggled. And so that's another team that's kind of on the fringes of can they get over the top. And, of course, we know what Clemson is doing now. They've kind of reset during the off week, the bye week, and they picked up their game here lately. So I see, between Alabama and Ohio State, those two teams, I think, may get their first loss first.
Yeah, I'd probably, if I had to go on a limb, I'd probably say Alabama now, just because anytime you lose a quarterback of the caliber that Alabama loses, it's tough to rally your team. And then to know that you've got a super hot LSU team that you'll be playing against, it makes it very tough. And when you play those games, probably be a 1 versus 2.
That's
true.
True.
When you play those games, you have to be firing on all cylinders. And you lose a Heisman type of quarterback, or you're just getting that quarterback back for that game. And as a quarterback, you may have to knock a little rust off, and you may be a little rusty for a quarter. And in a game like that, if you miss a quarter, that may be just enough to make them fall. But Nick Saban, he's the master of getting teams prepared, and so he'll have that team prepared. But if I'm looking at all the teams out there, boy, Alabama, they better look out.
Definitely.
Well, it looks like the pollsters have lost a lot of confidence in Clemson over the last couple of weeks. They seem to have dropped, from number 2 to number 4. You don't see a loss for those guys?
Not really. I mean, again, if I'm Dabo Swinney, again, as a head coach, you look for opportunities like that to fire your team up.
Yeah.
I mean, because when you're number 1 and number 2 in the country as a head coach, the hardest thing is making sure your team doesn't get arrogant or doesn't get prideful or takes things for granted. Now, Dabo can say, look, they don't respect you. They're dropping you in the polls. And so he's like, behind closed doors, he's like, this is exactly what I need.
Exactly.
This is exactly what I'm going to use to fire my team up, and we won't get complacent. And so he's going to use it. And so Dabo, behind closed doors, he likes what they're doing to his team right now, because he's motivating his boys off of that.
I would agree.
Well, Charlie, do you have any closing thoughts before we close the show today?
Well, appreciate Peter being here, and Woody, of course, I'm always grateful for your co-hosting, Charlie's Chalk Talk. But before we leave, I would just like to send up prayers for Bob Goin and his family. He passed away last week, and I call him Commish. He was a guy, he was our athletic director while I was in school. Was great for our program, for our school, and did a lot of great things to get us to where we are today. And also, speedy recovery to my coach, personal coach, Coach Mark Rick. Just had a heart attack and had surgery, and here he's doing well. So we send up prayers for him and his family as they go through this challenging time. As I know, I've had a history of a mini stroke and those types of things, so I know the pressure of being in that situation, and we just ask that you continue to pray for their families.
Well, that wraps up another great edition of Chalk Talk with Charlie Ward. We hope to see you back here for the next episode. Check us out on Facebook, Chalk Talk with Charlie Ward. We'll see you next time.